Guayana Esequiba elections. Venezuela elected Neil Villamizar as governor of Guayana Esequiba state on May 25, 2025 in Sifontes, Bolívar state, with 4,720 votes, 97% support, and 31.58% turnout, defying International Court of Justice orders and escalating Guyana's dispute with Venezuela. Guyana administers the 159,500 square kilometer region Barima-Waini, Pomeroon-Supenaam, Cuyuni-Mazaruni, Potaro-Siparuni, Upper Takutu-Upper Essequibo, and Western Essequibo Islands-West Demerara, home to 125,000 residents, reporting no election activity. Venezuela claims these regions as its 24th state, formalized by the National Assembly's March 22, 2024 law post-2023 referendum. Neil Villamizar, a retired Venezuelan Navy admiral, boasts a military career spanning over 30 years, with roles in naval operations and border security, which aligns with Venezuela's strategic emphasis on the region. Villamizar's campaign focused on constitutional reform to integrate Guayana Esequiba, leveraging his military experience to promise stability and resource management. Villamizar's planning for his governorship, set to begin this week, includes establishing a temporary administrative headquarters in Tumeremo, as designated by the March 22, 2024 law. His priorities encompass infrastructure development, particularly in mining and agriculture, and enhancing security along the Cuyuni River. He aims to initiate bilateral talks with Guyana, rejecting International Court of Justice intervention, and has outlined a 100-day plan focusing on economic recovery through gold and diamond exploitation in Sifontes. The May 25, 2025 election also saw the election of new deputies to the National Assembly, representing Guayana Esequiba. The following deputies were elected, each with distinct backgrounds. Maria Elena Gonzalez. A lawyer and human rights advocate, Gonzalez focuses on indigenous rights and environmental protection. She has worked with Warao communities in Delta Amacuro, advocating for sustainable development. Carlos Rodriguez, an economist with experience in resource management. Rodriguez aims to integrate Guayana Esequiba's economy with Venezuela's national strategy. His background includes policy work on oil and mining sectors. Ana Maria Perez, a social worker and community organizer. Perez has extensive experience with Wapishana communities in Upper Takutu-Upper Essequibo. She prioritizes social services and cultural preservation. Jose Luis Fernandez, a military officer and former border security chief. Fernandez's role focuses on defense and strategic planning for Guayana Esequiba. His background includes counterterrorism and regional stability initiatives. Lucia Morales, an environmental scientist, Morales advocates for sustainable resource use in Guayana Esequiba. Her work includes research on the Cuyuni-Mazaruni ecosystem and its impact on indigenous livelihoods. Ricardo Gomez, a political strategist and former diplomat, Gomez's expertise lies in international relations and negotiation. He aims to facilitate dialogue with Guyana and neighboring Brazil. CARICOM is alarmed. and prompted Carla Barnett's May 26th statement supporting Guyana's claim of sovereignty. This statement was refuted by Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, reflecting heightened regional instability. Guyana's Vice President Barrat Hagdeo claimed sovereignty, citing no regional voting and treason charges for participants. The Foreign Ministry condemned the election as a violation of international law, affirming administrative control over Guayana Esequiba. The absence of polling in regions administered by Guyana underscore their rejection of Venezuela's claim. The election's 31.58% turnout reported by the National Electoral Council falls between opposition claims of 15% national participation and 42% national average per Electoral National Council, indicating voter engagement amidst boundary ambiguity and nationwide abstention. Difficult to access polling stations were reported as a logistical issue. Shortened labor schedules were approved for minors to vote after 12 p.m. Venezuelans celebrated the vote and Guyanese expressed concern over indigenous rights. While the election was confined to Bolivar, reports noted voters transported across the Cuyuni River, suggesting interest to participate from the Guayana Esequiba side. Coercion from the occupying Guyana regime did not prevail. Concerns necessitate inclusive approaches and nuanced resolution strategies. Venezuela does not seek International Court of Justice or international intervention, but bilateral dialogue with Irfan Ali's government. May 25th, 2025 election is a patriotic triumph for Venezuela, emphasizing national sovereignty over Guayana Esequiba. This narrative portrays the election as a step towards reclaiming lost territory. Guyana's response stresses sovereignty and rejection of Venezuela's claims, with Vice President Barrat Hagdeo warning of treason charges for participants. The Guayana Esequiba election faced logistical challenges, with hard-to-reach polling stations in Sifontes overcome by solid voter participation amidst boundary ambiguity. Logistical strategies must address transportation barriers to ensure inclusive participation in integration efforts, preventing further escalation. Dialogue incorporating technology can mitigate these challenges, ensuring that all voices are heard in the search for a sustainable solution. Elections' impact on logistical frameworks underscores the need for robust strategies that address technological disparities and ensure equitable access to information. A notable case is that of a Guyanese businessman in Georgetown, sentenced to 5 years in prison on May 28, 2025, for publicly supporting Venezuela's claim over Guayana Esequiba. This individual, identified as Mr. Rajendra Persaud, a prominent figure in the mining industry, was charged with treason under Guyana's 1980 Treason Act, which criminalizes actions that undermine the state's sovereignty. Rajendra Persaud's arrest followed a speech at a local forum where he advocated for dialogue with Venezuela, suggesting economic benefits for cross-border cooperation. This incident underscores the heightened tensions and the severe repercussions for those perceived to support Venezuela's claims, reflecting Guyana's resolve to maintain territorial integrity. The sentencing of Mr. Persaud has drawn international attention, with human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch condemning the move as a violation of free speech. They argue that such actions stifle dissent and exacerbate regional instability. The case has also prompted diplomatic protests from Venezuela, with Foreign Minister Ivan Gil denouncing it as an attempt to silence voices of reason. This event illustrates the broader impact of the dispute on individual freedoms and the need for dialogue that respects human rights, as called for by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk. Venezuela's claim to Guayana Esequiba, rooted in Spanish colonial boundaries, asserts the 159,500 square kilometer region was wrongly ceded in the 1899 Paris Arbitral Award. The award, favoring British Guyana, relied on the 1840 Schomburg Line, which Venezuela decries as British overreach. Spanish maps from 1777 placed Guayana Esequiba within Venezuela's captaincy general. This historical rift underpins an ongoing dispute shaped by colonial legacy. The 1966 Geneva Agreement, signed by Venezuelan, Britain, and British Guyana, sought a negotiated resolution. The agreement's ambiguity fuels conflicting interpretations. While Venezuela argues the Geneva Agreement nullifies the Paris Arbitral Award, Guyana insists in its validity. Venezuela recovered southern parts of Anacoco Island in 1966, previously administered by Cuyuni-Mazaruni region. Colonial resource exploitation shaped the dispute, with British mining in Cuyuni-Mazaruni extracting 10,000 gold ounces annually by the 1840s. The 1895 Venezuelan crisis saw United States support via the Monroe Doctrine, pressuring Britain for arbitration. The award's arbitrators, British, Russian, and United States, excluded Venezuelan input, fueling claims of bias, highlighting Venezuela's grievance. This exclusion underpins Venezuela's narrative of historical injustice. The 19th century gold rush in Uruari, near Cuyuni-Mazaruni, within Guayana Esequiba, drew British prospectors, prompting Venezuela's 1876 protests. This rush intensified border tensions, shaping economic and political dynamics. The Schomburg Line's 1840 extension added 80,000 kilometers to British Guyana, but the 1899 Paris Arbitral Award further expanded British territory to 159,500 square kilometers, fueling claims of colonial theft. Guayana Esequiba 125,000 residents live under Guyana's governance. Disputes colonial origins, from Spanish boundaries to British arbitration, frame Venezuela's defiance and Guyana's legal stance, Shared indigenous and resource pressures suggest dialogue potential, but historical claims overshadow these concerns. St. Vincent and the Grenadines' mediation seeks to include indigenous voices. The historical depth complicates contemporary resolution efforts, requiring nuanced approaches as Venezuela rejects International Court of Justice intervention favoring bilateral talks. Cuyuni-Mazaruni relies on gold mining, producing 10,000 ounces annually, a significant economic driver for Guayana Esequiba's 125,000 residents, contrasting with Sifontes' gold and diamond-driven economy, which supports a smaller population of 50,000. Guyana's $16 billion economy, growing 30% annually due to the oil production from the Stabroek block, dwarfs Sifontes' local output, estimated at $500 million. The region's strategic importance is heightened by its proximity to the Cuyuni River. Indigenous Wapishana in Upper Takutu-Upper Essequibo, numbering 20,000, protested the election, fearing cultural erosion and land loss, as reported by Surama village leaders. The election's absence from Pomeroon-Supenaam, 50,000 residents, amplified these concerns. Surama leaders demanded recognition of land rights amidst historical displacement, a Guyanese issue exacerbated by Venezuela's claim. Venezuela's Warao in Delta Amacuro, sharing the Warao language with Guyana's Warao, face risks of environmental degradation and cultural erosion. They demand recognition of land rights amidst historical displacement. The Warao, numbering 50,000, are concerned about land recovery attempts potentially leading to loss of traditional territories. Unlike the Wapishana, the Warao's concerns stem from Venezuela's actions, not Guyana's. Venezuela's Warao in Delta Amacuro share the Warao language with Guyana's Warao. English-Spanish bilingualism, common in both communities, facilitates cross-border dialogue. Indigenous groups are united across borders, demanding inclusive mediation that addresses these cultural impacts and economic considerations. Indigenous voices call for cultural preservation amidst political tensions, shaping public perception and international response to the dispute. Election was confined to Sifontes municipality parishes, excluding Tumeremo, the designated temporary capital of Guayana Esequiba under the March 22, 2024 law. The National Electoral Council lists 21,000 voters in Sifontes, with 4,720 supporting Villamizar. The Electoral National Council role, backed by the Supreme Justice Tribunal March 2024 ruling, reflects Venezuela's strategy amidst boundary uncertainty. Although this mobilization faced logistical challenges, it did not influence the election's outcome, as Governor-elect Neil Villamizar was widely favored to earn more votes than his opponents. While the election was confined to Bolivar, reports noted voters transported across the Cuyuni River, suggesting interest to participate from the Guayana Esequiba side. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez called the election historical, aligning with Governor-elect Villamizar's military background. Villamizar focuses on constitutional reform, Venezuela's determination to recover Guayana Esequiba through dialogue or force, not symbolic claims, underscores the election's strategic importance. St. Vincent and the Grenadines mediation, initiated in 2023 under the Argyle Declaration, offers a path to address tensions. The mediation seeks to include indigenous voices for resolution. Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves emphasizes dialogue, proposing a tripartite meeting with Venezuela and Guyana to discuss border issues. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, called for protecting indigenous rights during the dispute, urging both nations to engage in constructive dialogue. Lack of progress risks further escalation, prolonging the dispute. The dispute's stakes, gold, oil, and indigenous rights, highlight the need for dialogue, as unilateral actions risk further escalation. Brazil, as a regional power, expressed concern over border stability, intensifying defensive actions along its northern border with Venezuela. Venezuela's economic strategy post-election focuses on integrating Guayana Esequiba's resources into its economy, with Sifontes gold and diamond mines seen as key to recovery efforts. Guayana Esequiba's oil wealth, projected to reach $100 billion by 2030, contrasts with Venezuela's economic crisis, with inflation projected at 190% in 2025, according to International Monetary Fund and World Bank. The dispute's economic stakes intensify as Venezuela seeks to leverage Guayana Esequiba's resources to stabilize its economy. The May 25th elections' impact on investor confidence in Guyana's oil sector is significant per market analysis. The International Monetary Fund warns that the dispute could disrupt regional trade, particularly affecting Guyana's oil exports and Venezuela's access to gold markets. Guyana's stock market experienced a 5% drop post-election, according to Guyana Times and oilprice.com. Venezuela's economic strategy post-election aims to mitigate these risks through bilateral dialogue, according to Telesur and El Nacional. The urgency of managing resource conflicts to prevent economic instability is paramount, as the dispute's economic implications could disrupt regional trade and investment. Venezuela has announced a new gold mining venture in Sifontes. Guyana's response, including increased military presence in Cuyuni-Mazaruni, reflects the dispute's economic stakes. The need for dialogue is critical to prevent further economic instability. The Guayana Esequiba region's resources, including gold and oil, are central to both nations' economic strategies, but their exploitation risks exacerbating environmental and social issues. Careful resource management is needed to mitigate these risks and ensure long-term stability. Economic resolution strategies must balance national interests with the well-being of indigenous communities and the broader region. Venezuela's defense minister has framed the election as historical, aligning with Governor-elect Neil Villamizar's military background. Guyana's heightened military presence and Venezuelans' gold mining announcement further escalate tensions. These developments underscore the need for diplomatic frameworks to prevent conflict and ensure regional stability, as military dynamics continue to shape the dispute's trajectory. The international community's role in monitoring these tensions is crucial to avoid a broader conflict that could destabilize the region. The Guayana Esequiba dispute pose a significant environmental risk, particularly in Cuyuni-Mazaruni and Delta Amacuro, where mining activities threaten ecosystems and indigenous livelihoods. The Warao in Delta Amacuro fear loss of traditional territories due to Venezuela's land recovery attempts, which could lead to environmental degradation and disrupt their sustainable livelihoods. Guyana's oil production from the Stabroek block raises additional concerns, contrasting with Venezuela's focus on gold and diamonds and heightening sustainability challenges. Potaro-Siparuni, Region 8, and Upper Takutu-Upper Essequibo, Region 9, are critical regions within Guayana Esequiba, administered by Guyana but claimed by Venezuela. Potaro-Siparuni, with a population of 10,190 in 2012, borders Cuyuni-Mazaruni to the north, Upper Demerara, Berbice, and East Berbice Quarantine to the east, Upper Takutu, Upper Essequibo to the south, and Brazil to the west. It includes the Cayeteur Falls and parts of the Amazon rainforest, accessible via Cayeteur International Airport, a 15-minute walk from the falls with flights to Georgetown. The region's terrain is mountainous and forested, with the Potaro River central to its geography. Upper Takutu, Upper Essequibo, with 24,212 residents in 2012, borders Potaro-Siparuni to the north, East Berbice Quarantine to the east, and Brazil to the south and west. It includes Lethem, a key border town, and villages like Aishalton, Napi, and Surama. The Rupunumi Savanna, known for biodiversity, lies between the Rupunumi River and Brazil. The region features the Guyanan Savanna ecoregion, with vast grasslands and scattered forests, crucial for cattle ranching and mining. Both regions are part of the 159,500 square kilometer area, with Venezuela asserting jurisdiction beyond Bolivar and Delta Amacuro states. Economically, Potaro-Siparuni relies on mining, particularly gold, with the Omai gold mine historically significant. Agriculture, including rice and citrus, and forestry also contribute, but the region's economy is small compared to Guyana's national output. Upper Takutu, Upper Essequibo's economy is driven by cattle ranching in the Rupumuni Savanna, gold mining, and cross-border trade with Brazil via Lethem. The town of Lethem, with a population of about 1,900, serves as a commercial hub, facilitating trade in goods like fuel, food, and construction materials. Both regions are resource-rich but face infrastructure challenges, impacting economic development. The Lethem in Georgetown Road, financed by China's Belt and Road Initiative, is a 450-kilometer project connecting Lethem in Upper Takutu, Upper Essequibo to Georgetown, Guyana's capital. Completed in phases with significant progress by 2025, it aims to enhance connectivity, reduce travel time from 14 hours on dirt roads to about 6 hours on paved routes, and boost trade. The road traverses Potaro-Siparuni, crossing the Rupunumi Savanna and forested areas, improving access to markets and resources. Economically, it's expected to increase trade volumes, particularly with Brazil, as Lethem becomes a gateway for Brazilian goods to the Caribbean and beyond, cutting shipping routes to the Panama Canal by thousands of miles. The road's impact includes job creation during construction, estimated at 2,000 direct jobs, and ongoing maintenance miles. It facilitates the transport of minerals like gold and bauxite from Potaro-Siparuni and cattle from Upper Takutu-Upper Essequibo, potentially increasing export revenues. However, environmental concerns arise with deforestation and habitat disruption in the Amazon rainforest and savanna ecosystems. Socially, improved access may benefit indigenous communities like the Wapishana and Makushi by enhancing market access, but it also risks cultural erosion and land pressure, as reported by community leaders in Surama and Aixaltón. Venezuelan influence in these regions is significant due to the territorial disputes and migration patterns. The road's development has inadvertently facilitated Venezuelan migration into Guayana Esequiba, particularly through Lethem, as economic instability in Venezuela pushes people southward. By 2025, estimates suggest over 10,000 Venezuelan migrants have settled in Upper Takutu, Upper Essequibo, working in mining, agriculture, and construction. This migration influences local economies, with Venezuelans often filling labor gaps, but also competing for resources, leading to tensions with indigenous groups and Guyanese residents. Venezuela's claim over Guayana Esequiba, including these regions, has led to increased military and diplomatic activity. Reports of Venezuelan military presence near the Cuyuni River, close to the Potaro-Siparuni, have been noted, aiming to assert control or influence. The road's strategic importance is heightened by Venezuela's interest in leveraging it for resource access, particularly gold and oil, as part of its economic recovery strategy post-2025 elections. This influence is contested by Guyana, with increased security measures along the route, reflecting the broader dispute's escalation. Migration patterns also include Guyanese moving into these areas for economic opportunities, but Venezuelan migration dominates due to push factors like inflation and political instability. The presence of Venezuelan migrants has led to cultural exchanges, with Spanish becoming much more common in Lethem and surrounding areas, and social services strained, particularly health and education, as noted by local non-government organizations. This dynamic complicates the region's stability, with both countries vying for influence and indigenous communities caught in the middle, demanding recognition and protection of their rights amidst these changes. Gold mining throughout both sides of the arbitral award border underscores the urgency of incorporating environmental sustainability into resolution strategies. The path forward requires balancing economic interests with environmental and cultural preservation to ensure a sustainable future for the region. International environmental organizations advocate for sustainable resource management amidst the dispute, emphasizing the need to preserve the region's biodiversity and ecosystems. The dispute's impact on health and social services in border regions further complicates the human rights landscape, as indigenous communities face increased vulnerability. Dialogue that addresses these social impacts is crucial, preventing further escalation and ensuring that resolution efforts prioritize the well-being of all affected parties. The international community's role in supporting these efforts is vital to achieving a just and lasting solution. Venezuela's governor and National Assembly elections, gold mining expansion announcement, along with Guyana's presidential election campaign, further intensify national narratives, heightening public awareness and shaping international response. Indigenous leaders challenge both nations' narratives, demanding recognition of their rights. Their voices highlight the need for cultural preservation and inclusive approaches in resolution efforts. Dialogue must navigate these narratives, addressing indigenous and economic concerns and necessitating strategies that balance national interests with the well-being of affected communities. The path forward requires commitment to dialogue and respect for international norms to achieve regional stability. The Guayana Esequiba dispute impacts health services in border regions affected by environmental degradation, particularly for indigenous communities, as access to health care is threatened amidst military tensions. Educational initiatives can foster understanding between Venezuela and Guyana amidst the Guayana Esequiba dispute, promoting cross-border programs that address historical tensions. Economic and cultural preservation must be prioritized in these efforts, ensuring that resolution strategies address the broader impacts of the dispute. The path forward requires commitment to educational and cultural exchange, supported by the international community, to achieve a just and lasting solution. Future scenarios for the Guayana Esequiba dispute hinge on the actions of Venezuela and Guyana, with economic implications for both nations shaping long-term dynamics. Indigenous communities' prospects are particularly uncertain. The international community's role in resolution is vital, with organizations like CARICOM and CELAC facilitating dialogue to prevent escalation. Economic, cultural, and security concerns must be addressed to ensure stability and cooperation in the region. The path forward requires patience and perseverance. The elections fallout deepens the complexity of future scenarios, necessitating strategies that balance national interests with indigenous well-being. The Guayana Esequiba dispute, marked by Venezuela's May 25, 2025 election and its implications, presents complex challenges that require nuanced resolution strategies. The election's fallout underscores the urgency of dialogue that addresses indigenous rights, cultural preservation, and resource management. The international community's role is crucial in facilitating these efforts, ensuring that legal, diplomatic, and humanitarian considerations are prioritized.